Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to talk about what happened when we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What happened? I know a lot of us have been waiting for a very long time for our du'as to be accepted by Allah, but subhanallah, we kept waiting. Now, one thing you have to understand is that the lifespan of a du'a is from the very time you make that du'a till you die. Within that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can decide to respond to you. When you make dua, one is either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to you when He knows that you need this, what you are praying for. The second one is when you make dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't respond to you, He's definitely going to write a reward in secret for you, which you're going to need it one day in your life, or even in the hereafter. And the third point is when you make dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't respond to you or hasn't written a reward for you, the third point is He averts a calamity which subhanallah might have happened to you, and then He used that prayer to avert that calamity. Subhanallah. Just look at these three. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to you, or He writes a reward in secrecy which He knows one day you would need it, or the third one is either He averts a calamity for you. All of these three, subhanallah, is in your favor. All of these three things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is definitely gonna do for you is in your favor. They always say there's nothing that changes your qadar except dua. Right? And then subhanallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't responded to you immediate, be ready to receive a massive reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't ever stop making dua. Don't ever in your life, subhanallah, stop making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because one day, one time you will get to Jannah, you would see a lot of gifts, only to ask the angel, please, what are these gifts for? And they will tell you that these were the du'as you've been making to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because He loves you, these are your rewards. We need Allah subhanallah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need us. Never think in your life that Allah has not responded to your dua. Probably you may not need it at that point. That's why He hasn't given to you. As human, we are desperate, right? And so we always want to ask Allah, Ya Allah, I need this. Subhanallah. If you look at human as we are, when your colleague comes to ask you, or your friend or your brother or your family or anybody, comes to ask you, can you get this? Sometimes it will take someone more than a month before they do that. Some will not even do it. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they just expect the exact response at that moment. I always say that we have people who are so close to Allah that when they raise their hands and they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something, subhanallah, because of the love He has for them, He immediately will respond to. That's when they need it, right? Immediately, because they are afraid. How did they get there? Have you sat down to think about how did they get to that stage? Right? It's just like you are in a class and your lecturer has their favorite. Why do they have favorite? Because they help them, because they do their assignment well, because they perform in class well, right? Even as human, that is what happened when it comes to our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more efforts you put to become more closer to Him, He runs to you. He runs to you. This is something that, subhanallah, we need to consider a lot of time. But I want you to have it in mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely answer your dua. Your dua has been written, and definitely one of these is going to happen to your dua. Just relax, make a lot of dua, and I pray to Allah that He accepts all your wishes, all your dreams to come true. This is the little I have for you today. Barakallahu fi. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.